Hey guys, it's Mrs. MacPhail. We're going to work through some division problems, so if you need some additional assistance with your division, you find yourself struggling, this is the video for you. We're going to work through some problems that are in your practice pages, so please follow along in your practice pages or in your math notebook with this. Whenever we do a division problem, my suggestion to you is that on the right-hand side or left-hand side or somewhere in your notebook page, you write down our acronym for Does McDonald's Sell Cheeseburgers? DMSCB. Now, I know a lot of you have known this as DMSB, but I like to add the C part because it's an important check to make sure that we've done our division correctly. So here's our first problem. We have 248 divided by 4. Let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to work in green. You can work in whatever color you want. Now, our dividend lives in the den. It goes in the house. And our divisor goes on the outside. Important to make sure you set that up correctly. Let's go ahead and work this through now. First things first is I'm going to erase these little lines over here. And every time we do something, we're going to check it off on our DMSCB list. So the first things first, we have to ask ourselves, how many times does that divisor of 4 go into our first number in our dividend of 2? Okay, so can 4 go into the number 2? It can't. It's way too big. 4 is way bigger than 2, so we're going to put a 0 up there. Okay. Since we have a 0, we're going to look to our next number, which is our 4, and so now we're going to look at 24 in total. And we're going to ask ourselves, how many times can 4 go into 24? Since 4 is smaller than 24, we know that 4 can go into 24. Okay? So 24 divided by 4 is 6. So 4 goes into 24 6 times. So we're going to write the 6 right above the 4. And since we divided, we're going to make a check mark by the D. Next up is multiplication. Now, there's a little invisible multiplication sign that I like to write off to the side, diagonal from our problem, just to help me remember that I always have to multiply whatever number I ended up in the quotient times my divisor. So we're going to multiply 6 times 4, which is 24. So I multiplied. Next is subtract. Now, the C is check, and I am checking to see if my subtraction answer is less than my divisor. If it is, then I'm good to go. If this is bigger than this, I know that I have done something wrong, but in this case, I'm good. So let's go on. The B means bring down, so we're going to bring down our 8. Straight down. All right. Now this is the part that I see kids struggling with the most, is they don't know what to do from here. We have to start back at the top, so we're going to divide. And now we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does 4 go into 8? Goes in 2 times. We're going to write our 2 at the top, so we divided. We're going to multiply next. 2 times 4 gives us 8. We multiplied. Let's subtract. Let's check. Is our 0 less than our divisor? It is, so we're good to go. Now we don't have any other numbers to bring down. There's nothing next to the 8 that we previously brought down, and we're at 0, so it looks like our problem here is done. So our answer, our quotient for this problem would be 62. You can either stop the video here, or you can go on to our next problem. Here's our next problem. Remember, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? By the way, they do, if you didn't know that. Just kidding, you probably knew that. Let's set up our problem. Remember, the dividend, which is the first number here, is going to live in the house. It's going to live in the den. And our divisor, which is the second number, is going to be outside. The only difference with this problem, you guys, is we're working with a 2-digit divisor. We're going to treat it just the same as we would any other problem. So the first thing we ask ourselves is, how many times can 22 go into the number 1? Now keep in mind that if our divisor is bigger than our number, We cannot evenly divide it in. It can't be done. So we're going to put a 0 up here. 22 cannot go into the number 1. Now let's look at the 8 wants to join the party. So how many times can 22 go into 18? Our divisor, 22, is still bigger than 18, so it can't go in. So we're going to put a 0 up top. All right, now let's keep going. The 2 wants to join our party, so we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does 22 go into 182? Now this is where you could do some estimation in your head, or what I recommend you doing is just off to the side, trying to get as close as possible using multiplication. Since I know that 20 times 9 is 180, I'm going to try an 8, because I feel like 22 times 9 is going to take me a little bit over. So 2 times 8 is 16, 17. Let's try that. So 22 goes into 182 times, 8 times per our multiplication over here. Okay? Oops. So we're going to write an 8 above the 2. And then remember we have our little multiplication sign over here, so we divided. 8 times 22, we already did the work. It's 176. Check that off. Let's subtract. Twelve minus 6 is 6. 7 minus 7 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. Let's check our work. Remember, we're checking to see, is our subtraction answer smaller than our divisor? If it is, then we're good to go. In this case, it is, so we can check that off. Let's bring down our 6. Straight down. Now, we're dividing. How many times does 22 go into 66? Our divisor is smaller than our dividend here, so we're good to go. Let's divide it. And if you count by 22s, you'll find that it takes 3 of them to make 66. So 22 goes into 66 3 times. Write that answer at the top. 3 times 22 is 66. So I divided, I multiplied, I'm going to subtract. Let's check. Is 0 less than 22? It is, so we've done our work correctly, hopefully. We have nothing else to bring down, and we are done. So our answer to this, notice there's no remainder, is 83. So my quotient lives above the dividend here. You can either stop the video here, or we're going to go on to work on a problem that has a remainder. 55 divided by 8. Let's set up our Does McDonald's Sell Cheeseburgers? And let's set up our problem. Remember to be following along in either your practice page or in your math notebook. The dividend, the first number, goes inside the house, and the divisor, the 8, lives outside the house. First things first. How many times does 8 go into 5? 8 is bigger than 5, so it is not possible for 8 to go into 5. We put a 0. The other 5 wants to join the party, so how many times does 8 go into 55? Now this time we know that our divisor is smaller than these two numbers, so we know that 8 can be divided by 55. Let's use multiplication to think about how many times 8 would go into 55. So off to the side, this is the part that you might get frustrated with because it's some guessing, and that is completely normal in division. It's okay to do some guessing for multiplication and division. Let's use our facts. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 7 is 56, which is too big. We can only go to 55. So let's try 6. We know that 8 times 6 is 48. So let's put a 6 up here. So we divided. Remember our little multiplication sign hides off to the side. Let's do 6 times 8, which is 48. We already did our work off to the side. Let's subtract. We need to do some borrowing. The 5 in the tens place becomes a 4. That becomes a 15. 15 minus 8 is 7. And 4 minus 4 is 0. Let's check our work. Remember, we're looking to see if our subtraction answer is less than the divisor. If it is, which it is here, then we're good to go. Now the B, which means we have to bring down the next number in our dividend, which is our 5. A lot of 5s in this problem, so we're going to bring it straight down. And let's divide. Remember, now we're down here. We're asking how many times can 8 go into 75? 8 is definitely smaller than 75, so we know that we can do it. In this case, we have to do some guessing again. So we know before that 8 times 6 is 48. Let's try 8 times 8, which is 64. It's close to 75. Let's see what happens when we do 8 times 9 is 72. Oh, that's even closer yet. I like that one. So let's do 9 for dividing. So we're going to put a 9 up here. Now let's do our multiplication. 9 times 8 is 72. Subtract. Check. Is our subtraction answer less than our divisor? It is, so we're good. And let's bring down. But we don't have anything to bring down because as you can see, we have nothing left to or to the right of our number 5. So we're done. In this case, we have a remainder for our problem and we're just going to leave it as a remainder here. So we're going to write it 69 remainder of 3. You could also have written it up here like that. You can either stop the video here or you can go on to the final problem which looks at 2-digit divisors with remainders. Here's our final problem of this video. We're going to write down, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? And a reminder that you should be following along in your math notebook or your practice page. 729, which is the dividend, lives inside the den. The 31, which is the second number, lives outside. So first things first, remember we treat this just like a regular single divisor problem, only there's just another digit. How many times does 31 go into 7? Remember, we start with one number at a time here. And we know that 31 is way bigger than 7, and so it cannot be done. You cannot divide 31 into 7. So we're going to put a 0. Okay? So the 2 is going to join the party now, and we're going to ask ourselves, how many times can 31 go into 72? We know that 31 is smaller now than 72, so division can be done here. Get your pencil ready because we're going to do some guesswork. We know that 31 times 1 is 31. Okay? So we're still smaller than 72, so let's keep going. Next up, let's try a 2. So we're going to do 31 times 2. So that's 62. Okay, we're still smaller than 72. Let's see if we can do another one just to see. 31 times 3. Let's see what that gets us. Remember, we're trying to get close to 72 without going over. But 93 is way bigger than 72, so that's not going to work. So don't do that. This is going to be the closest one. So we're going to use 2 up in the quotient. So 2. All right, so we divided. Let's multiply. 2 times 31, we've already done that work. It's 62. Let's subtract. 10. Let's check. Remember, we're checking to see that our subtraction answer is less than the divisor, which it is. So we're good to go here. Let's move on to bring down. Let's bring our 9 down. All right. Now we're back at the top for division. So we're going to ask ourselves, how many times can 31 go into 109? Once again, we're going to have to do some guessing here. Do you remember before that we had 31 times 3, which is 93? And it didn't work before, but let's just start with that for now because we're trying to get close to 109. Let's see what 31 times 4 gets us. got us 124. So 124 is way bigger than 109, so we can't use 4 in our answer, but we could use our 3 because that got us to 93, which is close but not over 109. So we're going to put our 3 up in the quotient, and then we're going to multiply. 3 times 31 is 93, so we divided and we multiplied. Now we're going to subtract. And our answer is 16. So let's check. Is 16 less than our divisor? And it is, so we're good to go. Now let's bring down, if we have something to bring down, but we don't have any numbers here, so we are done. And our answer for this problem would be 23 remainder of 16. Keep practicing. Division is tricky. You need a lot of repeated practice to fully be comfortable with long division, so don't get frustrated and don't give up. We'll see you later.